Welcome to the Embracing Abraham podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Tommy Kellogg.
What's up, y'all?
He's calling in far away from
calling in today.
Omaha.
From the Great Plains.
And we're live in New York. This is Joshua Johnson, and we have Sabrina Soffer with us, coming in from Washington, D.C. How are you doing, Sabrina?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is really nice to have you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'll explain the reason why I'm here, and then I think that'll take us into further conversation, and then I'll talk about myself a little bit as well. But I'm here in New York because I emceed and spoke at the opening awards ceremony of the American Sephardi Federation, which I was a fellow of their college program back when I was a student at George Washington University. And I graduated from George Washington in May of last year. But in my remarks, I spoke a little bit about my background, and I emceed the event, and I was privileged to be the presenter of the awards to Bernard Henry Levy, who I admire as a philosopher, and other renowned Sephardi figures in the arts and music. So it was really an amazing experience to be able to do that. And then last night, actually, there was a concert with a singer that I grew up listening to. He's a French-Algerian, and his name is Enrico Macias. And he's a phenomenal singer. I recommend to all listeners of this podcast to listen to his songs. And he takes you really through his story as a Jew, a Sephardic Jew, but it's really a story of the Jewish experience of struggle and sacrifice and strength. And his music has given me strength and my family strength throughout our lives. So that's New York. But me, I told you a little bit about my college. I went to George Washington University, graduated last May, and currently I am co-authoring a book with Ambassador Yechiel Leiter. He's the Israeli Ambassador to the United States.
It's amazing.
And the book is called Of Good Courage, Israel and the West's Fight for Moral Clarity. And in fact, I found out today that it's been put on Amazon. So if you search it up, you'll be able
pre-order?
You can pre-order it.
Okay.
It'll be coming out February 2nd of next year. And then I'm also a research fellow at the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, which is based in Israel. And I host a podcast there actually called Xing Out Antisemitism.
No way.
Yes.
We will put the link. We'll put the link.
You.
That's so amazing. I didn't realize that. So that's remote though, because that's in Jerusalem. Okay.
Yes. But we have some team members in the U.S., but the main location is in Israel.
Yeah. So how did you get? I mean, you were an amazing MC.
Thank you.
For the night. You had to stand the whole time, and you introduced everyone very well. How did you have that opportunity? Was it because you had been in Sephardi House?
Yes. So it was through Sephardi House. When I was at the fellowship, I spoke on a panel. I think it was about something related to Jewish strength and anti-Semitism, and something that Jason Guberman, who's the executive director of the American Sephardi Federation, something that he said was, we don't exist to resist anti-Semitism, but it's like to push our principles forward with purpose, something like that. I don't want to quote him exactly, but it was something along that line. But the theme is really fight anti-Semitism with robust Semitism. And that's really the modus vivendi, if you will, of the American Sephardi Association, which I loved. And it was really one of the most incredible experiences that I had during college, because my college experience was rife with anti-Semitism. And that was one of the groups that wasn't so focused on anti-Semitism per se. And I do think that it's actually very important to look at the underlying causes, investigate the groups that are behind it, the finances. That's essential, because that's really a testament to how it's a national security issue. But at the same time, what Sephardi House does, it actually has the substance that we need to be strong Jews, because we can't fight if we don't know who we are. Yeah. So it helps students solidify their identity. And really what Jason said about the first students to really take a stand after October 7th about anti-Semitism, and even before, because I was fighting anti-Semitism on campus before October 7th.
Got it.
And it was very interesting to find out that we were mostly of Sephardi background, and groups like Sephardi House only make that stronger. So I'm very grateful to the organization for providing students with that opportunity. And that's how I got connected to them, and
Wow.
they brought me back this year to MC. So.
Okay. So having that strong, resilient Sephardi cultural background, instead of just fighting anti-Semitism, you have a strong, positive contribution for Sephardi culture. I don't think in our podcast we've interviewed someone of Sephardi background, so maybe you could explain in your own words what it means to be a Sephardi Jew, maybe as opposed to Ashkenazi, or what it means to be a Sephardi or Mizrachi Jew.
Sure. So Sephardi Jews come from the lineage, or Mizrachi Jews. The terms are kind of interchangeable now, but Sephardi Jews come from the Jews who descend from the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
So, and they've migrated to countries in North Africa, even to Europe, and there's also to Portugal, to the United States.
Yes.
There's now a Sephardi Jewish diaspora, if you will, but that line of Jews comes from Spain. But then there's also Mizrachi Jews who may have come from the Sephardi line. I know that part of my family actually traces back to the Spanish Inquisition as well. And then, of course, more recently over the years, there was a family in Syria and Iraq. So that's usually what you call Mizrachi Jews. So Jews from the Middle East, the Arab world. And Jews there, my family especially, had a very prosperous life in Syria, Iraq, Egypt. And that's where my grandfather, my paternal grandparents are from Egypt.
Yes.
And then there's also Mizrachi Jews who come from the Caucasus, Iran, Azerbaijan, so those areas as well. So it's the non-European Jews. That's what Sephardi identity is, or Sephardi Mizrachi identity is. But my family, I already explained that my father's side traces back more to the Arab world, but my mom's side of the family is from Dagestan.
Dagestan.
It's
former Russia.
Yes, former USSR. It's really the wrestling capital of the world. Whenever I tell people that my mom is from Dagestan, they're like, wrestling. And then until a couple of years ago, I was like, what? I didn't know about this. And then I looked it up, and I was like, wait, that checks out, because my family on my mom's side, they are the strongest people you will ever meet. Like, you do not want to mess with them. So,
well, they're also called mountain Jews, so it makes sense.
Exactly. They come from the mountains, and there's a lot of, it's like a tribal culture, very tribal culture, and that community is mostly Muslim.
The wider community.
The wider community is mostly Muslim, and there's a small community of Jews. They're called Tat Jews. Tat, T-A-T, Jews, mountain Jews. Kafkazi, you call them in Hebrew. And many of them, my mom's side of the family, actually moved to Israel. My grandfather was a tremendous Zionist, and in fact, it was a mixture of Zionism that drove them to Israel. There were pull and push factors, but also he would talk about hearing people in the villages saying, in order to save Russia, we must kill Jews. That's what people in the public square were saying.
Wow.
Given the Soviet propaganda at the time and the anti-Semitic tides in Russia, it's really not surprising that he would hear things like that. So there were certainly pull and push factors that drove them to Israel. And then my mom grew up in Israel, and there were Jews in Israel before. Throughout time, right, since the beginning of history, basically, and that's a myth that people think Jews are foreign occupiers to the land, but no, there was always a Jewish presence in the Levant. So just to get that straight here. But something else that's interesting is on my dad's side, there's a similar dynamic, because my grandparents would tell me about the accusations against Egyptian Jews who really had a prosperous life, as I mentioned, in Egypt and in Iraq too. There were, Jewish families had a great life in Iraq as well, although there was persecution, but they were prosperous and they contributed to their communities. But my grandparents would tell me that they were being accused of being Zionist spies.
Wow.
And when I was a student on campus, it wasn't that we were accused of being, terrible Jews. Some students were called dirty Jew and whatnot, but it was mostly we don't not like Jews. We just hate Zionists. So when I would hear these stories and I would tell them about my experiences, why are they, calling me a dirty Zionist or whatever?
Yeah.
And
it's like, have they met a Zionist? Have they met? Yeah. Did they?
Well, no.
Did they know you? Did they know you were? Because sometimes people have this image in their mind, but then when they actually meet the person that represents, then it can change their mind.
Right,
But-
and they don't care. But it's that it's that
don't care.
the word of anti-Jew is
Yeah.
anti-Zionist, and
Yeah.
now anti-Zionism is like a respectable progressive ideology. And most people don't know about the Muslim Brotherhood and their strategy and their dogmas, and the fact that way back, in the 1930s and 40s, they were already accusing Egyptian Jews of being Zionist spies. It was like
Wow.
history here again is repeating itself. And as we know, there's been Muslim Brotherhood influence in American university campuses. So
Yeah.
it's laid bare in front of our eyes. But it's fascinating, really, to put all these pieces together throughout my 4 years in college and beyond, and just learning more through my research as well. Because you just see how the strategy of the Muslim Brotherhood is actually drawn from Nazism.
Okay.
And that they're...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's like literally it's an Islamo-Nazism that we're seeing proliferate today.
Yes. Yeah, I know you have like the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. I don't know the exact years, but
Yeah, in the 1940s.
he was very...
He met with Hitler.
An alliance
Yeah.
with Hitler.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was your research?
So I did research that. I actually have an article in Fathom Journal.
Okay.
And it was actually written in the class
Yeah.
that I spoke about on Monday night.
Okay.
And I can tell that story momentarily because I think it's a nice one. And it talks
Sure.
about my Sephardi background. I
Yes.
wanted to talk about it. But I wrote this paper, and it talks about the dynamic of protection and persecution.
Okay.
Because there's a whole debate of whether Jews thrived in the Arab world. And there's a book by, I think it's
Bernard
by
Lewis? Or
There is, yes, Bernard Lewis certainly has a scholarship on it, but I think Martin Gilbert wrote
Okay.
a book called In Ishmael's House, or it might be by Bernard Lewis.
Okay,
but
okay.
maybe you can check and put in the show notes. Forgive me for not remembering exactly who the author is, but we read both of their works in this class. But In Ishmael's House is for sure the name of the book.
Yeah. That's right.
So in this book, it talks about the protection and persecution that Jews faced in the Arab world. And there, it's on varying levels throughout time, but it was never that Jews were put on equal. They were always of dhimmi status, but they did, have significant contribution to society, and they were integrated in some way. But in this paper, I discussed that, and then I also talked about this level of persecution that arose when the Muslim Brotherhood came into power, and this collaboration between Hitler and the Mufti of Jerusalem. So I did touch upon that in my research. But in that class, on the first day of that class, I encountered a female student who was sitting behind me, and I saw that we had, I'm not wearing the necklace today, and you can't see my necklace anyway, but it's a necklace of the map of Israel. I called that map Israel.
Okay.
She called it something else.
Okay.
And I introduced myself, and I was very open about my identity.
Yeah.
And so was she. And I thought to myself, oh boy, based on my previous experiences on campus, this isn't going to go well. But sure enough, I made a point to talk to her. And sure enough, we actually became very good friends.
Yes.
And it was because I brought up that my dad's side of the family is from Egypt.
Oh,
And her mother's side was from Egypt.
Yeah, that shared heritage.
We totally connected on that point. And it opened up a whole beautiful friendship that blossomed for some time. And the connection that we had in the foods that we grew up eating, and the Hebrew and Arabic words that were so similar. And it really delivered a positive message to me amidst this difficulty that I was facing on campus. Is that maybe there is some hope here, and that we can do something together. So I actually we resolved to create a program for Israeli and Palestinian students, or Jewish and Arab students, to come together and talk about geopolitics and literature, and really just find our unity, because I think on campuses today the Jewish and Arab communities are so divided. Yeah. And there's not much opportunity for reconciliation, mostly because a lot of the Muslim groups are kind of taken over by the Students for Justice in Palestine anti-Israel waves, but that's not really true. Like, if you go to Israel, a lot of the Arab community, they embrace the Jewish community. It doesn't matter, what religion or ethnicity you come from. It's just about character and being a good person, and your differences actually make you stronger. And that's how I felt with her, is that every difference that we had actually broadened our minds and enabled us to see things in different ways for the better. There was a dignity in difference, as Jonathan Sachs likes to call it. So, but yeah, after October 7th, things changed. And, the story is in my book, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But I'll just say that there was a sad ending to this story. But yeah, I'll let you ask the next question. And
well, was she the same one that you were dancing with too, Enrico? Where is it? What's his name?
Enrico Macias.
Macias. Or was that another friend that you mentioned?
So there was another friend that was from the fellowship. So she was actually from a class. But the other students that I would dance to Enrico Macias with were from the Sephardi House fellowship. And that was another moment of amazing connection, because I was speaking to one of the rabbis that the fellowship brought. His name is Rabbi Albert Gabai, and
he was the chief rabbi of Philadelphia, or not chief rabbi, but the Sephardic rabbi.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we picked up a conversation. We instantly connected because of my family background.
Yeah.
And another student came up to me, and I was telling him about Enrico Macias and how my grandparents listened to him. She said, "Oh, my family's also from Egypt, and I love Enrico Macias." So then, a couple days later, there was like a little rooftop party, and we made a shared playlist. And then when Enrico Macias came on, we were all like dancing away.
That's amazing. That's amazing. There's this movie I was trying to find, documentary. It wasn't called Make Hummus Not War, but that was basically the idea of Arabs and Israelis making hummus together. There was like a hummus competition. And once you find a common interest like that, it breaks down some of the boundaries and borders.
Absolutely. And
having sort of grassroots root, like you having this friendship with this woman, seeing that the same flag, or not flag, but the outline of the state of Israel. I've seen the same thing. And it's kind of funny, or it kind of takes you back, like, oh, you're wearing that necklace, but like you have a different meaning to it.
Yeah, and she respected that, which was really beautiful, because it was unexpected.
Yeah.
And it was very organic in the sense that, I would talk about Jabotinsky, and she said, I have a different, view of Jabotinsky. I said, okay, so let's talk about it. And we would sit in, different coffee shops. I can just remember we'd like work on our schoolwork, and we would talk about it. And
that's so cool.
And I love those kinds of friendships, because they, I love learning, and I love genuine relationships with people when they open up, and I think everybody does, and everybody should. And with her, who's somebody that I never expected to have a connection with, and the fact that she came to my apartment, and we would have teim nana, we call it in Hebrew. It's like mint tea with the mint leaves. I love it. It's like a post Shabbat ritual. At any Israeli home, you'll find it. But that's how I grew up. And you have dates and like little snacks on the table. And she says, this is the most Arab thing I've done in college, with the Israeli flag above her head. I'm like laughing at it. We couldn't stop laughing. I was like, come on. So
it's amazing.
But yeah, it was awesome. And it reminded me of the history of my mom's side. And I think I spoke about this on Monday too, because I learned very recently, actually, I didn't know this history, but I was fascinated by it. So according to some research that I did and can verify, but when the Nazis came toward the Caucasus, the local Muslim community, they were searching for Jews, the Nazis, and the local Muslim community told the Nazis, in essence, these are not the Jews that you're looking for.
Wow.
And they're not the racial profile that you want.
Wow.
And they convinced them basically to go back and do an investigation. And by the time that investigation was finished, the war had ended. So the local Muslim community protected the Jewish community.
That's amazing.
And I think if not for that, who knows what would have happened, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's a really incredible story, and it's a story of hope, right? Like maybe, if that was the way some Muslim students could have acted on campus, helping Jewish students, and I know that there have been stories like that. Especially from the Christian community. It's been incredible to have Christian friends supporting Israel, around the world, and and
that's kind of why we're here, Tommy and I. That's how we met, sort of on the banner of Christians supporting Israel and Jewish studies. Tommy, I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but
Yeah, yeah. I think your story, Sabrina, is amazing. First off,
Thank you.
so thank you for sharing so much of it. I think it's a beautiful thing too, of kind of you saying, recognizing that admitting you have differences, but also finding common ground. I think is really important in our world. And yeah, that's kind of like Josh was saying. Him and I met through, our studies, and we were both fortunate to be able to attend Yeshiva University for a master's program, and so but our whole thing was like, we are Christians who support Israel and Jewish people across the world, no matter what, right? Like, it's just something that we feel strongly about. And so, and before I forget, I wanted to mention something that was really cool that happened a few days ago in Nebraska, where I'm from. I saw gotta pull it up here real quick. Essentially, our governor signed an executive order combating anti-Semitism in schools here in Nebraska. Yeah, which it said that he essentially, I've heard this kind of terminology, but the order essentially says it adopts the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism. And they're also going to require schools to submit reports about anti-Semitism investigations within the schools. But this is like smaller, right? This isn't necessarily college, which you've kind of been talking about a little bit. So it's kind of interesting. Anyway, yeah. So I think that's really awesome. In Nebraska, it's an interesting place, because kind of like you sort of alluded to your story with this person, how there's sort of a turn. Sounds like that, is unfortunate after October 7th. And even for me in Nebraska, being here most of my life, but having this interest that sometimes feels far away in a lot of ways. But I've been also blessed to be able to visit Israel multiple times and meet people, and Jewish people here in Nebraska and Omaha. But it's interesting, kind of like October 7th did kind of seem to be this watershed moment all of a sudden, to where people who kind of, I had been, my first trip to Israel was 2005. And so, it was almost 20 years later when October 7th happened. And it was kind of interesting to me that, like, a lot of people here, at least for my experience, there was a lot of indifference to it all when I was doing it for 20 years. Then October 7th hit. And then all of a sudden, everyone had an opinion. Everyone had, like, an idea. And to my surprise, to be honest, and maybe Sabrina, I mean, living as a Jew and somebody who's experienced anti-Semitism quite a bit, it sounds like, even prior, at least in Nebraska, I was shocked that all of a sudden there's like this groundswell of anger, and like even people not accusing me of being a Zionist necessarily, which I am, but as a Christian, right? But like, almost like, how could you, Tommy? Like, I can't believe it. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? Like, I have all this history in my own way of trying to learn and understand, because though as a Christian, like, our heritage, so we could call it that, is from that place too, right? Believing in Christ and where he's from Israel, and as a Jew, right? And so I was like, how could I not support it? Like, that's something that's very ingrained within this religion and what I choose to believe. And so it's just been really interesting to see that there was definitely a change. And so I think, Sabrina, the work you're doing is really important, and also just a beautiful story about you and the friend you made for a time to sit together and really just find commonality in some way, and so I just think it's really beautiful. I don't have like a really anything insightful as far as questions go, but it's kind of what I wanted to share right now, at least.
So Sabrina.
Sure. No, I just like to address, first of all, I just have to say thank you, because I don't think that the Jewish community has expressed enough gratitude, and there's no amount that I can express to really express the full amount that I'd like to express. But really, the Christian community has been incredible, and since I've started writing my book with Ambassador Leiter, it actually is a call for Jews and Christians to unite in this fight for moral clarity. And we embed biblical scripture in the text, and we give stories of traveling to, for example, to Liberty University, where, wow, I can't even explain to you how blown away I was with the embrace for Israel and the study of the Middle East in a fair way with scholars from the region, including Israel. And all I could think when I was there was, wow, if this was on a Columbia University campus, Harvard or GW or Georgetown or whatever, just having the sign, Israel Studies Center event with the Israeli flag, first of all, who knows if it would have been allowed in the first place? And second of all, it might have been protested down. And the fact that Liberty has, and not a Jewish institution, right, has an event like this where you have thousands of students clapping for the Israeli ambassador to come. I mean, it was just breathtaking. And just observing that and thinking, wow, if it wasn't here, this couldn't have happened. And the fact they've dedicated a new center for Israel studies.
Okay.
And it's just been really amazing to see that from the starting point that, yes, Jews are indigenous to the land of Israel. Zionism is a legitimate and positive, constructive idea. We can expand our study of the region and of Israel and of, the dynamics of the different religions that exist there in a, you can call it critical lens, but critical from the point of view of, we want to actually study this thing for what it is, not create dogmas and narratives in order to demonize it. So that was really incredible to see. And then just transitioning from that, a word on the IRA definition. You mentioned what's been going on in Arkansas and the actions that have been taken by different officials in terms of instituting different pieces of legislation or whatnot, different statements to combat anti-Semitism. So I'll start out by saying that I don't believe that implementing the IRA definition is going to solve our problems. I think it is a very, it shows that you care and it shows that you want to do something. I think the intention of doing good is certainly there. However, the enforcement of that is unknown. And having the statement without proper enforcement might actually cause blowback. And if the teeth are not there to actually have enforcement when the blowback happens, the problem might actually get worse. And I think what's happening right now is that the problem is getting worse. It's just not visible as it was after October 7th. And I think that what the protests did and what the encampments did is they raised the threshold of what is acceptable conduct for anti-Semitism. So, or what is unacceptable, I'm sorry. So the encampments are unacceptable.
What is accepted by?
Correct. But anything less than that, that's okay, right? So if there's a student, and I'll tell us, I sued George Washington University in a story in the complaint. It details a class where there was a renowned psychologist who came to speak to the class. And she starts, her lecture, and she says that she's Jewish, and it somehow comes out that she's a Zionist and supports a two-state solution. A student gets up and he starts berating her, calling her a Nazi, a rapist, a murderer, just for simply
a two-state solution,
for accepting, Israel's right to exist. Right, and the faculty who were present not only did nothing, but actually praised the student. And the lecture
during the lecture.
Well, during her lecture, she was forced to leave after the certain period of time that he was berating her. But she was forced to stop. And then the two professors did not intervene during that time. And then afterwards, they praised the student.
And you were there the whole time.
I was not there. It's not my account, but this is in the complaint.
I see.
But that tells you everything you need to know. Because what about all the other students in that class who know nothing about Israel? She was brought to talk about something psychological, detached from the region. And simply because her identity was, Jewish, Zionist, whatever it was, and she was being berated, and the professors accepted this as acceptable, the students are going to think, oh, then that's what we should be believing too, because the authorities in the room made a statement, right? That quote unquote a statement by through their behavior, that basically says this is what you should believe, that is okay to berate somebody based on their identity, and that is actually a suppression of their of the Jewish psychology lecturers' religious liberty. Yes, it was her religious liberty to express that, and she was not allowed to express it fully. She was forced to stop. And I think it shows that the shaming and the shunning is working. And this is an example that's, it's a story. It's one example. But in schools across the country, there are different manifestations of issues like this, and they are not brought to the public eye, because what's in the classroom usually stays in the classroom, and students fear speaking up about what happens in the classroom because grades are at stake. They don't want to get retaliated against. So when this doesn't come out, people don't know about it. So then when you have IRA and things like this, it doesn't really solve those issues inside the class.
The solution would be more education, right? But educating people about the Holocaust and Jews and familiarizing themselves with the whole story. But in your experience, is most of the anti-Semitism, is it top down, or is it like from the student body, or is it sort of a vicious cycle of both?
So I think student organizations certainly are responsible for spreading it among the student body.
Got it. Okay.
Although I do think that faculty and the administrators that don't hold the faculty accountable for doing what they're doing are ground zero for campus anti-Semitism. And what I've been saying for a long time is that they produce what I call a pipeline of hate.
Okay.
So it's seated in the classroom, and then it gets to the students through, whether it's through the curriculum that's biased or whatever is being taught. There's so many different examples through, biased syllabi, through stories like the one I just told. The students come to believe it.
Only showing one side of the issue.
Sure, and the education pieces, and there's Holocaust, revisionism and inversion to make it seem like, no, the Holocaust, maybe it happened to the Jews, but no. The Holocaust also happened to the Palestinians. The Nakba was like the Holocaust. There's been this relativization of the Holocaust, and it's been, there's been many people who have said that, like the whole genocide claim, right? It's as if Gaza is a concentration camp. Like, no, that is false.
I've heard that,
but that they're intellectuals.
You hear it, and then it kind of like...
and rings. Correct. It rings because what's in the syllabus and what's being taught in the classroom, echoed in student organizations, it becomes legitimate, and then nobody really stops it properly. There's not enough education that's being allowed to get into the curriculum to make students think otherwise. And then sometimes what has happened at multiple universities is that professors actually have given students extra credit to attend anti-Israel events.
Jeez.
And that happened across the country. And, of course, they're going to attend for this incentive. And then it spills out into the open. And that's how you get the massive protests. And you get professors joining the protest, student organizations joining the protest, and they're all working together to shame Israel. And not only Israel, America as well. You saw American flags being desecrated at the George Washington University encampment. George Washington, the statue, was enveloped in a keffiyeh and vandalized. And it just shows, like, all I could think to myself in those moments were these students are literally using the rights that are given to them by this country to disparage the very country that they're so privileged to live in. And
disparage the rights that they're using.
So very hypocritical, very, very shameful. And it's really, there's no gratitude there. And I think gratitude is a very important quality and something that we prize as a Judeo-Christian value. Jews in the morning, they wake up and they say, Modeh ani lefanecha. It's a call of gratitude and knowing, before who you stand and to get to know yourself, and just affirming that value is super important.
Thanking God for each breath and waking up.
And just thanking God and your family for working so hard to put you in this country and in the school, right? They're disparaging the schools too. And it's really a constructive effort versus a destructive effort, right? When you look at the protests or the rallies, I think they're more rallies, vigils organized by the pro-Israeli community, pro-Israel Jewish community. They were never destroying anything, never singing or chanting songs of hate. It was always peaceful. It was always peace-oriented. The messages, like we would sing Oseh Shalom, it's songs for peace, and Hatikva, the hope of, one day being able to live safely in our homeland. That's what the protests on the pro-Israel side looked like. Okay, and there were so many students who, in good faith, including myself, went to the university administration, tried to work with them to integrate educational programs, who tried to help them amend their policies, right? These were all constructive efforts, right? We want to make the institution better. We don't want to destroy it. But here you had the other side, the anti-Israel side, who was desecrating property, Columbia University breaking into buildings, harassing students and professors and janitors even, their very own janitors. Like what a disgrace, right?
Yeah.
It's the constructive idea versus the destructive idea. And you can take this in the broader context of Zionism and anti-Zionism. Zionism was a constructive idea, anti-Zionism is a destructive idea.
So I think that the story of Sephardic Jews in general is a positive, constructive effort to kind of challenge the anti-Zionism, because on Monday, we had Avi Issacharoff, who directed Fauda, the Netflix series, and he had this interesting story in which he shared how he was able to interview one of the heads of Hamas a few years back, and the man was saying how, kick the Jews out from the river to the sea, this will be one nation for Palestine, and Avi asked, he's like, well, my ancestors are from Kurdistan, they're from Persia, they were from here, and so does that include me? And then he's like, okay, no, you're fine, you can stay.
Yep.
And so it's like
everybody got a laugh out of that.
That was a good one. But the more you hear about Mizrachi Jews, Sephardi Jews who have been in the land of Israel and not just coming from Europe, which is sort of one of the narratives, like the Jews just came from Europe and they should go back. That decenters that idea and shows the groundedness of Jews in Arab lands and in Israel the whole time.
Yeah, it totally debunks it. And actually, another little anecdote that I think I wrote about it somewhere, and it was before October 7th as well. I was trying to distribute flyers, educating students on campus about what about all these allegations, right? Apartheid, ethnic cleansing, genocide, etc. So I was distributing these flyers, and there were some students who came up to our table and confronted me with a large Palestinian flag, waving it in my face and whatever. And so I tried to start a conversation with them, and I tried to talk to them about the Holocaust and how Jews are oppressed, an oppressed people. There's never been, a group that's gone through so much suffering. Yeah. Right. And this student, and I said, my family comes from Egypt. Yeah. I try to, make that connection. Yeah. And she said, "Oh, you don't have enough color of your skin, so on your skin, so you can't be oppressed." And wow. And it shows how this identity politics, intersectionality idea has overrun. So
not even that you aren't necessarily from Egypt, but that you don't have this certain quality that is the category of oppressed people. Right. And if you don't fit into that, then you can't be oppressed.
And it's not, and I'm not telling you this story because I'm saying that I'm an oppressed person. I actually hate that framing. I was just trying to appeal to the progressive,
ideology of oppression.
In order to, and I said, let's go for coffee, and they didn't want to because they said they don't talk to oppressors.
Okay.
So anti-normalization stance of BDS, classic. But this is really and that's the loss here, because I would have loved to sit down with these students and talk to them. But unfortunately,
understand why they came to this opinion, have an open conversation, but it seems like that's harder, impossible to do.
Yes, and I think that if there's somebody of good reason and of good intent, and you tell these stories, and there is that education out there, yes, it can work. And just like it worked with my friend in that class, right? We bonded over this shared connection to Egypt and the Sephardic story and Jews in Arab lands, etc. And we learned so much. And I think that's the hope, as I mentioned before.
Why do you think, this is a little bit broader, but why do you think there are such diverging opinions? People looking, maybe not the same facts, but looking at the same region, land, and coming to complete opposite opinions. Is it, are they getting different information? Is it the way they are raised? Are they, what do you think is sort of at play there?
It's a great question. I think I have many answers for you, and I don't have the full answer, but I do have hypothesis, and I have in the academic setting, it's one thing. Social media is another aspect. Family life is another, right? Like social media for sure is a problem. And something else that I'd like to add is that even among and on the right, so mostly in the Christian community, there is a threat of rising anti-Semitism, absolutely. And I think that's coming from the some podcasters on the right, including Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, that have been very appealing to Christian youth who are mostly on the right. So that's something else that comes with the social media territory. So it's not only this, progressive lens, maybe more free Palestine argument that would appeal, you would think, mostly to Muslims and Arab student groups. It's also coming from this like America first. So there's the social media, and it's like you have an information deluge, right? So there's so much out there on social media, and there's not much restriction on it, which you can argue whether that's whether the internet. And the internet is different from the university space, right? Because there are faculty codes of conduct, and faculty have to abide by certain professional standards and responsibilities, and administrators have the duty of care to enforce those. And when that's not done, that causes problems. And faculty have really been able to
not intimidating someone for speaking their views, which unfortunately happens, as you just said. And that's not a free environment to exchange and learn ideas.
Correct. And I think that it's happened insidiously, though, and it's not just after October 7th, it's been happening for years, is that departments are stacked with anti-Israel, and anti-American, very progressive-leaning faculty members. And there are statistics on that. I think Yale has a statistic that at one point over 90% of its faculty were on the left, which I don't have a problem with having faculty on the left, but you need to have a balanced faculty spread. That just makes sense if you're an institution devoted to intellectual inquiry and truth. Right? But when you have entire departments chaired by somebody who is of the ideology that is anti-Israel, and faculty have the authority to teach whatever they want in their classes, then sure, if it's going to be approved by the department chair, if it is, then that's fine. So there's nobody really to contest those opinions.
No oversight.
Right? And right, there's no oversight, there's no monitor, and less so from the administration, because it would pass first through the department chair. So it's really, there's like a culture of impunity in the institution. And if students are in that environment from not only in universities, this goes back to K through 12. We can't forget that this starts much before. It starts in K through 12, and there's reports on that too that talk about the penetration of anti-Israel views in K through 12 and ethnic studies curriculums, etc. And then it just gets reinforced in college through social media, and the home is something else, right? And I think the biggest thing, and if there's any parents watching this, like this is really the message that I have to parents, is that give your kids, don't push anything down their throat. Let them explore. And they will hopefully be guided towards truth, but you want to give them the values to discern, number one, and to have courage to assert their views and to debate openly with their peers, with their parents, and really search for truth, and base your truth off of facts, not just one perspective, right? And that's what we learn, what we're supposed to learn in school. It's very basic, but I think that parents acting as guides for character is essential. And I'm very grateful to have parents who did that for me. And I'll just say that when I was a sophomore in college, I think going into my sophomore year of college, my dad took me to Bethlehem.
Oh, wow.
And Bethlehem. It was an incredible experience.
Which is, for our listeners, it's I guess you'd call Palestinian. It's in that side, yeah.
Yes, yes.
It's kind of funny. It's where Jesus was born, but it's like very much the radicalized. I was there, and we went to the church there, and then, well, there were two funny things. Anyway, there's the Starbucks knockoff, which I thought was hilarious.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we were there at the church, but then outside there was like this fight breaking out, and we had to like evacuate, and it felt like the opposite of a place of peace. You know, it felt like the complete opposite of what like Bethlehem you think of, like the starry night, the nativity, that kind of thing. That's what I think of. But it just felt very fraught and contentious and like hatred. And you see those like Banksy, when you cross over the border, the wall, you see the Banksy, the peace, but there's a lot of like aggressive and violent imagery, and it's just right when you cross, it's just all right there.
Yeah, 1,000%. I saw it was like it's the wall, right?
Yeah,
they call it the
wall of
the security
peace?
fence. The wall of peace. That's right. Yeah, more like the wall of propaganda. But
yeah.
But the story that I want to tell here is that when I went there, I saw young kids.
Yeah.
Who were in an UNRWA summer camp, and the United Nations Refugee Works Agency that has been documented to have ties with
summer
Hamas
and
carried out some of the personnel carried out some of the Hamas atrocities, and they've been largely responsible for indoctrinating young Palestinian children with all this hatred and pro-jihad ideology, and that's really why you have the issue that you have, right? We know that education begins it all, education versus indoctrination, but
So what was the camp like?
Oh, I mean, I just observed it from the side.
But when you say camp, what I'm curious. Like, what is the?
It's like a summer camp for kids. Summer camp for kids. And
so it's not like it's not like, well, because when you said camp, I'm already thinking like tents and refugee like.
Oh no, and that's actually important because this is actually a beautiful facility of UNRWA that's actually been like permanently there. They call it a refugee camp, but no. This is like a beautiful
what would it be
building.
Like? It would be like a.
It looks like this building.
Like a university.
Like it's maybe a little smaller, but it looks like a building where children can go to school and a refugee camp. That's right. Okay. So in any case,
that's the kind of things you hear on the news or whatever, and you have this image already.
Absolutely.
Camp, you for some reason think concentration camp.
That's right. That's what people are misled to think, but. But yeah, so they were wearing T-shirts that had like a flame with 1948 on the back, and I remembered hearing the chants at school. It says, "We don't want two states, we want 48." So they want, so it's really an anti-peace slogan. But the story that I want to tell is that when I was there, I was even questioning my view. Like I grew up in an Israeli home, right? And I didn't know much about the geopolitical environment of the region. Yeah. So I went to they have a museum there. It's like a Palestinian history museum. And we had a guide. And he took us through what he thought, and he pulls out a map and he goes, "This is Palestine."
They had the dinosaurs wearing the keffiyehs too.
Sure, yeah. And I'm going through this museum, and it's, very, it's propaganda-esque, but it's very appealing, right? I can see how it's compelling for many audiences who don't know anything. Yeah. So on the drive back, I'm talking to my dad, and I'm saying, what if some of this is true? Okay. So he says, go and do he doesn't, and he has a very strong view. Yeah. But I'd been reading a lot, and he says, keep reading, keep discovering. I'll give you, some books to read. You can go explore on your own, but make up your mind of what you think. Okay. And I came to my own conclusion. And the conclusion, of course, that, I'm very pro-Israel today. But I came to that conclusion myself. And of course, I have the identity of, I'm a Zionist, I'm a strong Zionist. But I could have gone another way if I wasn't given that guidance to really do my own research and look at the facts, because the facts are what matter. And when you omit the fact that Hamas uses its population as human shields, you omit the fact that Israel warns, right? All these things that are in the public domain but are omitted in academia largely, or in education. you fall into a very dangerous territory. And I think that Israel also has to stop apologizing. This Hasbara thing of, Israel has the right to exist, we do this, we do that. Stop apologizing. It hasn't worked. We don't have to beg or applaud when people recognize or appreciate our right to exist. No, we exist just like any other country, and Jews have been indigenous to the land for years, and we have evidence of that. So show the evidence. Show your pride, but also show the historical backing to it. And I think Jewish students, whether they're of Sephardi heritage, Ashkenazi, whatever, just know the substance, know the facts, arm yourself with the facts, and have the courage to disseminate them.
Wow. It's very nice. I did want to talk a little bit about more about your mother's heritage. You also wrote a book about, was it co-written with your mother? Called My Mother's Mirror, A Generational Story of Purpose, Resilience, and Self-Discovery. As you mentioned, she is of Dagestani, Mountain Jewish, Azerbaijani Jewish, Kavkazi. There's several different names.
Yeah, it's all the same thing.
It's all the same thing. I've sort of been interested in that because, I might have family background there. I took a DNA test, anyway, could you explain a little bit more about that book and how it was to write that, and any stories from your mother's heritage?
Sure.
That you want to share?
So I wrote that book between high school and college. I graduated in the COVID year.
Very early. Oh, okay.
So I decided to not go to college immediately and
write a book.
And all of a sudden, write a book. So during that time, I would go on walks with my mom, and she would tell me stories from her youth and growing up. And she started telling me about her first marriage, which is detailed in the book as well. And she started telling me about it, and it was very similar. There are similar themes, let's just say, to the Netflix series Unorthodox. I think it's also a book.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So I said, look, you have a really interesting story that's similar to this. If you can write something that's and it would contain more of her family background, not just the theme that this woman who was in an Orthodox marriage left the community, but really more about what led to that, what led to her decisions after she left that community. So I said, why don't you write your story? You have an amazing story. It could make international headlines. So she said, yeah, maybe, but English isn't my first language. I can't write, So I said, okay. Let me take a stab at writing something in your voice. And it came into an introduction for the book. And I said, okay, I'll run with it. So I ghost wrote the parts in her voice, and it chronicles her life story. And it starts with her background in Kafkaz, in the Southern Caucasus, and I spoke with my family members.
And that's a Hebrew word, Kafkaz?
Kafkaz is like where, like Derbent, like that area, the Caucasus.
The Caucasus, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any relationship there, but between the two words.
The words, yeah, Caucasus.
But yeah, in Dagestan, where she grew up until she was 6 years old.
Okay.
And then from there, as I was speaking about earlier, the family moved to Israel.
Okay.
And she grew up in Hadera, which is like between Tel Aviv and Haifa.
Haifa, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Kafkazi community is largely the Israeli one is largely populated in Hadera. And
Okay.
she grew up there until she was 18, and then she and her family came to New York.
Wow.
And then that's when she had her first marriage with an Orthodox man.
Wow.
And it didn't really work out. The book, it's detailed in the book. And
I see. It was that's the unorthodox part of it?
Correct.
Okay.
And it talks about, but really the point of the book, and it goes through her journey up until that divorce, that decision to get divorced. That's really the moment where she says, I'm not living for myself. I'm living for the community. I need to get out of this because I'm sacrificing my life for others at the expense of myself.
Okay.
So she went on all these dates, and I write about them all. It's actually fascinating because you learn a lot.
Okay. That's hilarious.
And then she eventually meets my father, and then at that point in writing the book, I was like, well, how do you want to approach me as the subject?
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been writing this book. So she talks about parenting me up until my bat mitzvah. And I said,
wow.
I already went through high school, and I had a lot of, some experiences with stress and anxiety. And because a lot of the book is actually based on her life coaching tools, she's a life coach as well.
Got it.
And I helped develop some of those tools, and we won an award for them from the USC NICO Foundation. There was a competition. And we integrated these tools into the book, because each chapter, each part of the book serves as it's a guide for people to maybe relate to some of these stories, because I think anybody who reads the book, it's mostly for women, but I think also men can relate to these stories, because they have to do with identity crisis, relationships, immigration, anything. But they really have like life tools for character development. So I wanted to include my story as well, and how what she learned throughout her life had an impact on me. So it's really, you can call it a self-help book, but it's like a memoir at the same time.
Fascinating.
So, and I think that coming back to the Sephardic theme here that we're talking about, the Kafkazi spirit is really like, it's when I said it on Monday, stay sassy, stay classy. That's really what it is, because my grandmother and my family, like there's a lot of grace, right? In that, like my grandma is so graceful. She reads, and she's there's this level of respect towards the community. And I think that's beautiful. But at the same time, when you're trampled on and somebody challenges you to a wrestling match, right? On that whole thing, the whole theme of Dagestan, you don't let up, and you fight until the very end.
Wow.
And those ideas might be contradictory. And I know that there's this, I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this whole like mercy and compassion versus like condemning evil, hard line, like in Christian scripture, right?
Yes.
Like there's this, and I think also in
like turn the other cheek.
Exactly.
Versus
that's
like
correct. But there's also like in the Christian scripture, our scripture, right?
Yeah.
It's the shared idea that when there's evil, you blot out evil.
Yes.
And you rise up and kill first,
blot
right?
out Amalek. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it is. It's these ideas don't contradict. And you do what you need to do in certain situations. You discern, and then you assert yourself. So, and that's really we
had our last, or a few podcasts ago, we had a director, Salvador Litvak, who wrote and directed the movie Guns and Moses, which is about a Chabad rabbi who, when faced with what appears to be an anti-Semitic hate crime, has to sort of take justice into his own hands. And he learns how to use a weapon. He becomes kind of a vigilante detective. And one of the things it brought up for me while watching this film was sort of, you have this rabbi who has to enact justice. And I was struggling with the difference between compassion and turning the other cheek and then sort of defending. And Salvador Litvak, he brought up the point that the Talmud and the Torah, the idea that if someone comes to your house at night, this is in the Torah, if he comes to your house at night to hurt you, you have the right to fight back. If you know exactly that he's coming for that, and then the Talmud also teaches that as well. But basically, if someone rises to hurt you, you rise first, essentially. Yeah,
I think there's another quote. It's those who are merciful to the cruel are ultimately cruel to the merciful. Something like that. Yeah. But I think that that's, in life or death situations, sure. Yeah. But I think this whole idea of, holding people accountable and also being, having the best intentions and, keeping your composure and having compassion, they're not contradictory
staying
ideas.
Classy, staying sassy.
Yeah, there
Got
you go.
It.
In funny terms, but I think that's something that
that's what they say. That's what your grandmother says, or something.
No,
or?
I said. I just put it in my own words, but that's how I would encapsulate this. It's like a push and pull between. Yeah. You always, and at the root of it, I think at the basis of where these two ideas converge, is you always go into everything that you do with the best intent. With the best intent possible. Like, even if you know that somebody has wronged you, give them the opportunity to do you right, to apologize. It depends on the context, of course. But it's like with all these anti-Semitism issues. Yes, many Jewish students who confronted these incidents went to the administrators and said, we have a problem here. But in many cases, the universities were proven to be deliberately indifferent.
Wow.
And at that point, you hold them accountable, right? So,
and that's when you sort of testified to the Congress Commission.
So,
was it after that?
So it was after, no, the congressional testimony happened very shortly after October 7th, actually.
Oh, okay.
And that was really where I recounted my experiences before October 7th that led up to that led up to what we saw afterwards. And I think I just told my story, if I'm remembering correctly, from my testimony. I told my story of what I saw before October 7th, and that this was an issue. Not just
it was an issue
now.
That was already there. Got it.
And now it's just exploded out into the open. So,
wow, thank you so much for coming on. This was really a delight. So you work for, I don't know if you actually said this, but you work for the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs, Research and Diplomacy Fellow, and so you'll be continuing to research on these matters. What's next on the horizon for you?
So we host. So I work with the Jerusalem Center. We have a podcast that's usually every 2 weeks, and we bring on different experts. And we actually have it's hosted live on Twitter, on X actually.
Oh, I see.
And then we put that recording into a podcast. So we bring on different experts whenever we have the show. And this week we have one about Aliyah and anti-Semitism.
Oh,
and
cool.
Aliyah is like when people move to Israel.
Yeah, going up
in
to
a
the land.
sense.
Going up to Zion.
Exactly. And so I'll be doing that. And we also bring in geopolitical issues. We had an episode on Syria. And, of course, when the Iran war broke out, we started doing a lot on that as well. So it's more geopolitical in nature most of the time, but it really has to do with anti-Semitism interwoven in all of these geopolitical dynamics. We did one on Turkey as well, which was really interesting. But then on the other hand, the book with Ambassador Leiter, that will be the next big thing. So stay tuned for February.
I do want to. Is there anything cultural, like a little cultural heritage, another little bit of story, or just another little piece that's distinctive about either Egyptian or Azerbaijani Jewish heritage that you want to share with the listeners to kind of give them a taste of? I know you've already shared. What
specifically?
I don't know, like a food custom or just something that resonates with you, or
not
or
anything
a word, maybe a phrase, or.
I don't know. You kind of have to live it to really feel it. It's kind of hard to. The liturgy is a little bit different. And the foods are different. Prayers. Yeah, when you go.
The food is pretty Arab influenced.
Yeah. It's very, very Arab influenced. I actually, this past weekend,
I was in
you
Brooklyn. Like cooking?
I do, yes. And I was with my family that's actually has some Syrian influence as well. Okay. And those are like some of the foods I recognized from my grandpa too. There's bamia. It's like this okra with like tomato sauce, and then moroheya is like this soup. It's a spinach soup, and we put like some za'atar on it too. It's so good.
Wow, so, I love za'atar.
Yeah, it's the best. So yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you so much. It was a delight, and we will be in touch. We'll love to hear more about your book when it comes out, and I will put everything in the show notes. Tommy had to leave, but we are so thankful to have you, and Chatzlacha.
Toda.